Working with anamorphic images can be complicated and confusing because of their funny pixel aspect ratios and squeezed images. Shake provides a number of features to make working with anamorphic images as easy as possible. Let's see how they do it. We'll load an anamorphic image in by clicking on the File In node. Go to our Assets folder. Go to the Stills folder. Double-click. And select the anamorphic image and double-click on that. Loading the anamorphic image into our viewer, and we'll home that. Notice that the anamorphic image is squeezed. This image is a miniature cinemascope image with exactly the same proportions. What we want to do is set the viewer to stretch the image in X just like the lens does in the theater. We do not want to resize the actual image. We just want to stretch our view of it by a factor of 2 horizontally. And the way we do that is we go to the Globals tab, click on that, come down to Format, open that up, and come to the default viewer aspect ratio. We set that for 2. And that means to stretch the viewer in X by 2. If I hit the Home key, you can see that the image is now much wider than the viewer. Okay. In fact, to see that, I can hit the F key to fit it in the viewer. The key point is the image has been stretched by 2 in X. Now let's see what happens if we add a rotate node to this anamorphic image. We'll go to the Transform tab, click on Rotate, and we've added the Rotate node. We'll go to the Angle and set that for 25 degrees. And look at this. Our image is all skewed and distorted. Something really bad happened. What happened is, Shake did not know that the anamorphic image had a pixel aspect ratio of 0.5. So we'll come to this aspect ratio field here, which is really an unfortunate name. This really should be the pixel aspect ratio. So if we tell Shake that our picture has a pixel aspect ratio of 0.5, enter, suddenly the rotated image looks correct. We'll put that back to an aspect ratio of 1 because I want to show you something else. The rotate node is one of over a dozen nodes that care about the pixel aspect ratio. These are transformations and filters that if they don't know about the pixel aspect ratio, they will mess up your image. So rather than remembering a long list of nodes and telling each one the pixel aspect ratio, Shake, of course, has a single global parameter that you can set that tells all the nodes the pixel aspect ratio of your anamorphic images. As you might expect, a global pixel aspect ratio parameter can be set in the Globals tab. So we'll select Globals, come down to Default Aspect Ratio, which we know is really the pixel default aspect ratio. We'll set that for 0.5. Enter. Now the entire job is set for this pixel aspect ratio, so everything in the job will have to be anamorphic, cinemascope. Now we'll move this guy over here, select the anamorphic File In node. I want to add another rotate node and show you the difference. I'll shift-click on the rotate icon, adding another rotate node. This time, because the global parameter was already set, the node inherited it right here. Now if I enter a 25-degree rotation, everything works perfectly. Compare that to the other one. This is bad. This is good. Back to the Globals tab. There's a long list of presets you'll find in the Format pop-up menu. If we come up to the CinemaScope and let go, it's going to set the default pixel aspect ratio to 0.5 and the viewer aspect ratio to 2. But a lot of your work will be with D1 video, which has got a funny aspect ratio pixel of 1.1, and the display is actually squeezed by 0.9 in X on the monitor. So we'll go back up to another preset and we'll pick NTSC. And the pixel default aspect ratio is set for 1.1, and the viewer default aspect ratio is set for 0.9. This way, all of the images you work on in Shake will be seen on your viewer exactly like they appear on the TV monitor, but you will not have to worry about any transformations or filters that don't know the pixel aspect ratio. I'm going to set the default pixel aspect ratio back to 1 and the viewer aspect ratio back to 1. We'll fold up the format, double-click, select the anamorphic image, and home the viewer, because I want to show you another approach. You can speed up the development of your large anamorphic shots by using the proxy ratio feature instead of stretching the viewer by 2 in X. We'll find that in the Globals tab, come to Use Proxy, unfold that, and come down to Proxy Ratio. If you set that to 0.5, that actually squeezes the anamorphic image vertically by half. Instead of stretching it by 2 in X, we're squeezing it by half in Y. This considerably reduces the rendering time when you're doing interactive shot development. The trick is you have to remember to set the proxy ratio back to 1.0 at render time. Otherwise, your final render will be processed at half resolution vertically. So in this movie, we saw two completely different ways to work with anamorphic images. One is to set the viewer width to 2 using the default viewer aspect parameter. And the other is to set the proxy ratio to 0.5 to squeeze the image vertically by 1/2, which speeds up your development time, but you got to remember to turn it off for the final render. The other important thing we saw was how to set a global pixel aspect ratio by setting the default aspect parameter for the entire job, so that all of the transformation and filter nodes would inherit that and use them internally.